The twin suns of Korath blazed high above the Valley of Trials, their combined heat warping the horizon into shimmering waves of gold and fire. The valley stretched like an open wound in the desert, its center dominated by a single slab of black stone that gleamed as if it had been polished by the ages themselves. Around it, banners of every color and shape fluttered in the dry wind, their alien symbols glowing faintly in the sunlight. Thousands had gathered here, filling the terraces carved into the valley walls. Warriors, nobles, merchants, and scholars from dozens of worlds, each wearing their pride like armor. This was no mere spectacle. It was ritual, tradition, and test. The Sword of Origin waited, half buried in the ancient stone, its glowing runes whispering secrets no one could understand. The legend said the sword was older than history itself, perhaps older than the stars above. Some claimed it had fallen from the heavens before any known species had learned to speak. Others whispered that it had been forged by gods, beings who walked between dimensions and left behind only fragments of their power. No one had ever moved it, not by a fraction of an inch. The strongest and most fearsome beings in the galaxy had tried and failed 6 armed brutes from the Vrex Empire, insectoid generals with armor harder than steel, even the flameburn of Zalkar whose bodies burned hotter than suns. All had gripped the hilt, pulled with everything they had, and left in defeat. Every attempt ended the same way, with the sword unmoved and the crowd disappointed. And yet, every year they came back, because hope was a stubborn thing. The one who lifted the Sword of Origin would be more than a warrior. They would be something like a king. The crowd buzzed with anticipation as this year's chosen champions prepared for their turns. Armored titans adjusted their weapons, while smaller, swifter creatures sharpened claws and whispered prayers to their ancestors. Above it all, the black stone and its blade waited in silence, glowing faintly as if aware of the eyes upon it. Far at the edge of the gathering, a figure moved who did not belong. Jack Reimer was no warrior. He wasn't even invited. His ship had crash-landed 3 days ago in the forests beyond the valley, leaving him tired, hungry, and bleeding from a dozen scrapes. His once white spacesuit was now a patchwork of dust and torn fabric, his translator device crackling with static every few minutes. He had followed the sound of distant crowds and lights hoping for food or water, but what he found instead was an alien festival with a sword at its center. He stood there, swaying slightly from exhaustion, attracting stares from all sides. A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. A human? Here? One crystalline Zathian hissed. He looks like a lost pet, another muttered, its insectoid antennae curling in mockery. Jack ignored them. He was too tired to care. His eyes were fixed on the sword. It was like nothing he had ever seen. The blade shimmered silver, but the light didn't come from the sun, it came from inside the metal itself. Its hilt was wrapped in glowing blue threads, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Something deep inside him stirred when he looked at it, an instinct he couldn't explain. He didn't know the rules, didn't know the punishment for touching it without permission. He just walked forward, his boots crunching over the sand. The laughter grew louder. "What is he doing?" Someone shouted. "Let him try," another alien jeered. "It will be amusing." Jack didn't listen. The crowd was just a blur at the edge of his vision. All he could see was the sword. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt like it was calling to him. He climbed the small set of stairs carved into the black stone, his hands trembling as he reached for the hilt the moment his fingers brushed the cool metal. The runes carved into the stone flared to life, blazing so bright that some in the crowd shielded their eyes. The air hummed with energy. Jack froze, startled, but the sword didn't reject him. It felt warm, alive. Then it moved. Just a fraction of an inch, but enough to send shockwaves through the gathering. Gasps and cries filled the valley. A towering warrior from the Vrex Empire fell to his knees in disbelief. The leader of the crystal-skinned Zathians dropped his ceremonial staff, eyes wide with shock. The stone trembled beneath Jack's boots. Dust rose in thin clouds as the ground began to shake. From deep within the valley, a voice boomed, mechanical, ancient, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't a language so much as a vibration that spoke directly to the mind. Trial candidate confirmed. Ancient protocol activated. The crowd erupted in chaos as a beam of white light shot from the sword into the sky, splitting the clouds. Above, like shattered glass. Jack stumbled backward, staring at his own hand as if it had betrayed him. He had no idea what he had just done, but every alien present now stared at him with fear and awe. The white beam that had shot skyward still lingered like a scar in the clouds as the ground beneath Jack's feet trembled. The crowd of aliens surged back from the black stone, their whispers swelling into a tide of panic. The runes burned so bright they painted the valley in shifting shades of blue and silver. Jack tried to back away, his heart thundering in his chest, but the stone shifted under him. A ring of light flared around the platform, trapping him in place. The voice returned, cold and mechanical, yet heavy with something older than time. Trial of worth, initiating Phase 1. Before Jack could even curse, the stone floor beneath him opened like a giant iris, and he dropped into darkness. He didn't even have time to scream. A flash of blinding light engulfed him, and the next thing he knew, icy air stabbed his lungs. Jack stumbled forward and almost collapsed. He was no longer in the valley. The warmth of the suns was gone. He stood in a frozen wasteland beneath a swirling sky of red clouds. The ground was hard and white, a sheet of cracked ice stretching to jagged cliffs on all sides. His breath puffed out in clouds, and he shivered violently. "Okay, definitely not Kansas," he muttered, hugging his arms for warmth. A hum in the air made him look up, and across the swirling clouds, massive glyphs burned like fire symbols. He couldn't understand, yet their meaning sank into his mind. Trial 1. Survive the ice beasts. Time limit, 15 minutes. Jack's stomach dropped. Ice beasts? Seriously? His hands instinctively went to his belt, but he had nothing. No weapons, no tools, just a torn spacesuit and half a pack of rations. The cold seeped through his boots, numbing his toes. Then he heard it, a low, rumbling growl, deep and resonant like thunder. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. Over the ridge to his left, a monstrous shape rose, then another and another. Jack's blood froze. They looked like creatures, ripped out of a nightmare, each one towering twice as tall as a tank. They had 4 massive legs ending in clawed feet, a hunched torso armored with frozen plates, and 4 glowing eyes that cut through the storm like beacons. Their jaws steamed as they exhaled, and every breath froze the air into clouds of ice crystals. "Great," Jack muttered, his voice shaky, "because running from alien snow monsters is exactly how I wanted my day to go." He turned and bolted, boots slipping across the ice. The first beast roared, a bone-cracking sound that rattled the cliffs. Snow fell in avalanches from the ridges as the beasts gave chase. Jack zigzagged between broken ice pillars, his mind racing. He wasn't strong enough to fight them. He wasn't fast enough to outrun them. He had to think. He had to use his brain. "Think, Jack, think." He skidded to a stop near a crevice in the ice wall. It was narrow, maybe too narrow for the beasts. Without hesitating, he slipped inside, scraping his suit on the jagged walls. The first beast slammed against the crevice. Entrance, its claws swiping just inches away from his face. The others crowded behind it, snarling and trying to reach in. Jack's heart pounded. He was trapped, but safe for now. The crevice was dimly lit by faint blue veins running through the ice. Jack's gaze caught something strange. Pale roots, like frozen vines, coiled along the inner walls. When he touched one, it sparked faintly, sending a shock up his arm. Jack blinked. Well, that's weird. The root throbbed with an energy. He didn't understand, but it reminded him of something from back home, a chemical reaction he once saw during his survival training. His mind sparked with an idea. He yanked several roots free, wincing as they pulsed like living wires. Then he tore a strip from his suit's inner lining and braided the roots together, twisting a piece of metal wire from his damaged helmet around. Then, he shoved the makeshift device into a crack in the wall and backed away. The beasts, furious and relentless, forced their massive heads deeper into the crevice, jaws snapping. Come on. Come on, now. Jack shouted, slamming a rock against the wired roots. A burst of blue fire erupted with a deafening crack. The explosion filled the crevice with searing heat and light. The beasts screamed, their armored hides scorched, their roars cutting off into silence. When the smoke cleared, the entrance was a pile of shattered ice, and the beasts lay motionless. Defeated, Jack collapsed against the wall, panting, every muscle trembling. I can't believe that actually worked, he muttered between gasps. His breath fogged the air as the glowing countdown above flickered out. The voice of the cube filled his mind again, this time with a hint of something like approval. Trial. 1 complete. Primitive methods, yet effective. You survive. The frozen world around him dissolved like smoke. The ice melted into light. The ground vanished beneath him, and once again he was standing on the glowing platform. His knees buckled, but he stayed upright. What kind of sword makes you earn it? He whispered to no one. Far above, in the Valley of Trials, the sword of origin pulsed once, faint but steady, as if it were watching him. The alien crowd, silent and stunned, waited for what came next. The glow of the platform beneath Jack's feet pulsed like a heartbeat, and the cold silence after the first trial was almost worse than the fight itself. His body trembled, not just from exhaustion but from the strange energy still humming through his veins. He rubbed his burned hands and glanced upward, sensing the alien crowd far above, even though he couldn't see them. They were watching. He could feel their eyes, their judgment. The cube's voice returned, steady and cold, yet charged with something that sounded like anticipation. Trial 2. The Judgment of Strength. Jack groaned. Strength? You've got the wrong guy. I'm built for caffeine and sarcasm, not cage matches. A sharp chime rang out, and the platform under him expanded into a wide metallic disc suspended high in a void of storm clouds. Bolts of lightning flashed below, and the air tasted of ozone. The ground beneath his boots shifted slightly, as though it was floating, unanchored. What is this? Some kind of death stage? Jack muttered, peering over the edge into the roiling abyss. Then a beam of light struck the platform beside him, and 3 towering figures appeared. Jack staggered back, his heart sinking as he sized them up. The first was a giant insectoid warrior with gleaming chitin and razor-edged arms, its wings buzzing with a metallic hum. The second, a brute from the Gorgok species, looked like a nightmare given muscle and teeth. Its body was an avalanche of armor and scars, each one earned in brutal arena combat. The third figure didn't move, but its presence was worse than the others. Tall and thin, wrapped in silver energy armor, its face was hidden behind a smooth mask that glowed faintly. It radiated calm, focused malice, the kind of quiet killer that didn't need to roar to be terrifying. Jack swallowed. Oh, come on, you've got to be kidding me. Is there a trial that doesn't involve me getting smashed into paste? The cube ignored him. 3 challengers have volunteered. Only one may succeed. Only one may claim the sword. The trial begins now. The platform trembled, splitting into 3 jagged sections connected by narrow bridges. Lightning forked across the sky, and the crowd's cheers erupted, projected holographically above the arena for all to see. The insectoid champion struck. First, its wings buzzing so fast they blurred, sending it darting across the arena like a living blade. Jack barely rolled out of the way as its scythe-like arms carved deep grooves into the metal where he had been standing. The Gorgok roared and charged next, the ground shaking under its massive bulk. Jack scrambled to his feet, ducking between 2 cracked slabs of metal as the brute's fist slammed down, missing him by inches. "I really should have stayed in my escape pod," Jack muttered, sweat dripping down his face. He darted to the edge of the platform, his eyes scanning the battlefield. Metal debris littered the surface remnants of past trials, broken weapons, twisted shards of armor. He grabbed a bent pipe and swung it like a bat, though it felt pathetically light compared to his opponents. The insectoid lunged at him again, but Jack ducked and shoved the pipe under its wings. The sudden twist tore one wing's joint, sending the creature shrieking as it crashed into the Gorgok, claws flailing. "Yeah, fight each other." "That works for me," Jack said, backing away. The crowd roared with approval as the 2 monsters clashed. Sparks flew as claws met armored fists. Jack took the moment to set a trap, bending pieces of scrap metal into a rough spring snare, a trick he'd learned years ago in survival training on Earth. It wasn't elegant, but it was better than nothing. Insectoid pulled free of the Gorgok's grip and turned on Jack again, its wings buzzing despite the damage. Jack shouted, "Hey, Bug Eyes, over here," and ran straight toward his makeshift trap. The insectoid took the bait. As it lunged, Jack triggered the snare, the twisted metal slamming shut around its torso. With a scream, it stumbled, tripped, and tumbled off the edge of the platform into the storm below. The crowd erupted in shock. One of the galaxy's deadliest warriors had just been beaten by a human who barely had a weapon. Jack allowed himself a single breath of relief, but then the silver-armored figure moved. It didn't roar or charge. It simply blurred forward, moving faster than Jack's eyes could track. The blow hit like a sledgehammer, throwing him across the platform. Pain ripped through his ribs. He coughed, tasting blood, as sparks danced from his damaged suit. The silver warrior raised a hand, and energy gathered in its palm, glowing brighter and brighter. Jack forced himself to stand, every muscle screaming. The warrior fired a beam of pure energy, but Jack rolled just in time. The blast struck the platform's edge, carving a smoking hole. A piece of the arena cracked and broke away, falling into the storm. Jack's mind raced. He wasn't stronger or faster, but he could outthink this opponent too. As the warrior advanced, Jack feinted left, dodging another energy blast, leading it toward the weakened section of the platform. Lightning flashed, blinding for an instant. Jack stomped hard on a cracked joint, and the metal beneath the warrior's feet gave way. It fell, twisting in midair, its final attack firing harmlessly. Into the clouds. Silence fell. Only Jack remained. The platform stabilized with a low hum, and the storm began to fade. Jack dropped to his knees, panting, battered but alive. The cube's voice resonated, colder yet almost impressed. Trial 2 complete. Cunning surpasses power. Far above, in the Valley of Trials, the alien leaders were no longer laughing. Their whispers carried a new tone: fear. A human, just a human, had outlasted some of their strongest champions. And deep beneath the valley, the sword of origin pulsed brighter, as if it could feel the shift. A single thought brushed Jack's mind like a whisper from the blade itself. Almost worthy. The glowing platform beneath Jack flickered like a heartbeat slowing after a sprint. He remained kneeling, sweat dripping into the cracks of his torn spacesuit, his chest heaving with each breath. The arena had dissolved into white mist, carrying with it the echoes of alien cheers and the scent of scorched metal. For a moment, there was silence. No cube, no crowd, just Jack, hunched and bruised, staring at his trembling hands. Then the mist peeled away, revealing a new space, a resting chamber carved from polished obsidian, its walls alive with shifting glyphs that pulsed faintly like veins of light. The air was heavy, damp, and cold, humming with unseen energy. Jack stumbled toward a bench carved from the same black stone and collapsed on it, his body shaking from exhaustion. He didn't know how long he had until the next trial, but he needed to breathe, to think. Almost worthy, the sword's whisper came again, soft and distant, threading into his thoughts like smoke. Jack's head jerked up. "You again," he muttered. "You keep talking like you know me. I'm just a guy who wanted a sandwich and maybe a ride home." There was no answer, only a soft pulse in the walls as if the sword itself was listening. Meanwhile, above the resting chamber, the alien leaders gathered in the viewing towers. Their tones had shifted from mocking to alarm. The leader of the crystal-skinned Zathians slammed a clawed hand onto the railing. "This is unacceptable. The human is surviving the trials. If he succeeds, the sword will bond with him." The Gorgok general growled, his voice like grinding stone. "We all agreed the sword must never be claimed. It is not a trophy. It is a lock, a key. We risk everything if it chooses him." "Then end it," hissed a serpentine dignitary, her voice sharp as a knife. "The trials have rules, but accidents can happen." From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, tall, silent, wrapped in dark armor. Half machine, half something darker. Its single crimson eye glowed faintly as it bowed. "I will handle this," the assassin said, back in the resting chamber. Jack's instinct screamed a warning. He rubbed at the bandage on his ribs, feeling the dull throb of bruises beneath. The lights in the room dimmed unexpectedly, there, pulsing rhythm faltering. The sound of footsteps, soft and deliberate, made his blood run cold. "Who's there?" Jack called out, scanning the dark corners of the chamber. There was no answer, only the faint hiss of hydraulics and the scrape of metal on stone. The assassin lunged from the shadows. It moved like liquid steel, blades snapping out from its forearms. Jack barely rolled aside, the blade slicing a chunk of stone from the bench where he had been sitting. He scrambled for anything, any kind of weapon, but there was nothing but smooth obsidian walls. "Not fair!" Jack shouted, grabbing a loose shard of stone and throwing it with everything he had. It clanged uselessly off the assassin's chest plate. The machine advanced, silent and relentless. Then the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Use me." "What?" Jack's eyes darted around, confused. "You're not even here." "You don't need me to be here. Reach." Jack's hand moved without thinking, his fingers curling as if grasping something invisible. A flash of light burst from his palm, and suddenly a glowing spectral version of the Sword of Origin materialized in his grip. He blinked in shock. "Oh, this is either a miracle or I'm concussed." The assassin didn't hesitate. It swung, but Jack raised the glowing blade. Sparks erupted as the assassin's weapon was sliced clean in half. Jack's muscles moved on instinct, the sword guiding him rather than the other way around. He slashed again, forcing the assassin back. The cube's voice boomed into the room, sharp and angry. Unauthorized interference detected. Trial integrity compromised. Jack saw an opportunity. He dived for a control panel on the wall, smashing it with the glowing blade. A blue energy shield dropped from the ceiling, trapping the assassin. Inside the room, Jack stumbled backward, panting, the sword fading from his hand like mist. He collapsed against the wall, heart hammering. "What was that?" he muttered, staring at his trembling fingers. "Adaptation. the cube replied, its voice colder now. Your survival disrupts the order. Adjusting parameters. Final trial time reduced. Wait, time reduced? What is that even? The floor beneath Jack split open, and he plunged again, falling through a shaft of blinding light. The air grew hotter, drier. When he landed, he was standing before a massive set of doors made of silver and bone, etched with symbols that radiated heat like firebrands. The sword's whisper returned, but it wasn't soft this time. It was urgent, insistent. The final trial will test your heart, not your hands. The shadow within must fall, or you will. Jack swallowed hard, staring at the silver and bone doors. From beyond them, he felt heat, alive and angry, radiating like a living furnace. I'm starting to hate this place, he muttered, stepping forward. The cube's voice echoed through the chamber. Final trial. Face the inner shadow. Begin. The doors groaned open like teeth grinding together, and a wall of heat hit Jack like a physical blow. The light inside was fire-blinding, endless, and alive. Jack took a deep breath and stepped inside, knowing this trial would not be like the others. The heat hit Jack like a living creature, a wall of fire-laden air that seemed to claw at his skin and lungs. He stumbled into the chamber, raising an arm to shield his eyes from the blinding light. The floor was cracked and glowing orange, lines of molten rock bleeding through as if the world itself had been split open. Rivers of lava snaked along the walls, bubbling and hissing like serpents waiting to strike. Above, enormous statues loomed warped, deformed beings with alien faces. Carved in anguish, their eyes hollow and accusing. The cube's voice rang out, louder than before, cold but carrying an unshakable finality. Final trial. The inner shadow. Survive this chamber for 12 minutes. No shields, no weapons, only your will. Jack's throat tightened as he stepped cautiously onto the glowing floor. The heat instantly seared through his boots, sending a sharp pain up his legs. He could barely breathe. His suit was already torn, and now every breath felt like inhaling knives. 12 minutes? Jack muttered, coughing. I'm not sure I've got 12 seconds. The whisper came again, threading through his mind like a memory he didn't own. You are not here to fight fire. You are here to fight yourself. Jack. Froze. What's that supposed to? A shadow rippled across the floor like ink spreading over water. It climbed upward, twisting and forming into something that made his stomach drop. It was him. Same face, same torn suit, but the eyes were wrong, empty, cold, lifeless. The doppelganger smirked with cruel amusement. Well, well, the shadow said, its voice a distorted echo of his own. The great Jack Reimer. Crash survivor, wannabe hero, professional screw-up. Do you honestly think you deserve that sword? Jack's FI's TS clenched. I don't have time for this. You don't have time for anything. You never did. You're just a nobody who stumbled in here by accident. You didn't earn this. The shadow circled him slowly, its movements predatory. Do you know how many legends have failed these trials? Great warriors. Brilliant minds. And yet somehow, some pathetic human thinks he's better? The heat swelled around them, the lava rising in slow waves, creeping closer to the platform's edge. Jack took a step back, but the shadow mirrored him perfectly. Come on, Jack, muttered, lowering his stance. If you're me, you know how this ends. The shadow grinned, a perfect mirror of his own smirk. Oh, I know, you'll fail. You always fail. It lunged, and Jack barely ducked as the shadow's fist cracked against the stone, leaving a black scorch mark. He countered with a punch of his own, but his fist met air as the shadow flickered and reappeared behind him, slamming him into the PM. Ground. Pain shot through Jack's ribs. Every blow the shadow landed felt like it was tearing through his mind as much as his body, amplifying every doubt he'd ever had. Memories flashed his ship crashing, the helpless nights under alien stars, his desperate fear when he first saw the sword. "You're weak," the shadow whispered, its voice curling into his ears like poison. "You're just lucky. That's all you've ever been. And luck runs out." Jack rolled away, gasping, his palms scraping against the cracked floor. The heat burned through his gloves. He wanted to give up. For a split second, the thought of just lying there, letting the shadow win, almost felt like relief. Then the whisper of the sword cut through his mind, clearer than ever. Strength is not in muscle. It is in refusing to yield. That is why I chose you. Jack blinked, his vision swimming with heat and light. "Refusing to yield," he murmured. He forced himself to stand, his legs trembling. The shadow sneered. "You think standing up will save you? You'll never be enough." Jack took a step forward, the heat blistering his skin. "Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm just some guy who crashed on the wrong planet." He moved closer, ignoring the sweat pouring down his face. "But you know what I'm not? I'm not the guy who quits. That's why I'm still alive." The shadow lunged again, but Jack didn't dodge. He pushed through the pain, through the fear, and tackled the shadow head on. They slammed into the molten floor, but Jack didn't let go. He could feel it unraveling under his grip, like smoke struggling to hold shape. "You're not me," Jack growled. "You're just the part of me that's scared. And I'm done listening to you." With a final surge of willpower, he hurled the shadow into the lava. It screamed a sound that wasn't sound at all, but a raw mental agony, and then it dissolved into nothing. The chamber fell silent. The lava cooled, the statues cracked and collapsed, and the oppressive heat vanished. Jack stood in the center, burned and battered, but standing tall. A deep, resonant bell rang from somewhere unseen. "Final trial complete," the cube intoned, its voice carrying a hint of awe. "Candidate has conquered the inner shadow. Worthiness confirmed." Above, the valley trembled as the black stone cracked and the sword of origin pulsed like a star being born. The crowd went silent, every eye fixed on the glow. Somewhere above, Kira watched, her sharp blue eyes wide not with awe but with something closer to fear. Jack stared at his shaking hands, then looked up as the whisper of the sword returned, warm and fierce. "You have proven yourself. But the true test begins now." The valley was no longer a place of ritual or pride. It had become something alive, trembling under forces older than the stars. Cracks veined the black stone platform, glowing with light so bright it seared the eyes. The sword of origin floated above the shattered pedestal, spinning slowly, its silver blade humming like a living thing. The crowd of thousands, warriors, nobles, merchants, and spectators, was no longer cheering. They stood in a stunned silence, the weight of what was happening pressing down on every mind. Jack Reimer appeared in the center of the valley, his body broken but unyielding. His boots crunched against the cracking stone as he took a step forward. Ash clung to his torn suit. His face was streaked with burns, but his eyes were steady. He had faced monsters, cunning warriors, and even the darkest version of himself, and somehow he was still standing. The sword's light pulsed as if greeting him. Its voice felt rather than heard, wrapped around him like a presence from another world. "You have passed the trials. You are the chosen bearer." But before Jack could reach for it, a sharp command cut through the silence. "Stop him!" The shout came from the V-Rex general, a towering reptilian warrior whose scales gleamed like black steel. In an instant, guards from multiple alien factions rushed forward, their energy blades drawn, blasters charging with a rising whine. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some aliens screamed, others ran, while a few watched, frozen by fear and awe. Jack turned, confused and angry. "Are you kidding me? I did your damn trials. I nearly died for this. What's your problem? The general's voice was like a thunderclap. The sword does not belong to a human. You are not worthy of what you do not understand. Yeah? Jack muttered, gripping his side where pain flared from old wounds. Pretty sure I just proved I'm worth something. Before the guards could reach him, a blaster shot cracked through the air. One of the attacking soldiers dropped, stunned. A silver figure landed between Jack and the attacker's Kira, the silver-skinned alien who had first shown him kindness after his crash. Her eyes burned with fierce determination. Run! She shouted at him, firing another shot to drive the guards back. They don't want the sword chosen. They want it buried. Jack hesitated, staring at her. Kira, what's going on? Go, she snapped. But Jack didn't run. He turned back to the sword. As his hand reached out, the world seemed to freeze. Time itself bent, sound vanished, and the sword's hum deepened into a thunderous tone that echoed in his mind. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, the valley shook. Symbols of light, ancient and alien, spiraled around his body, etching themselves into the air like living fire. A voice boomed not just in the valley, but in every mind present. The trials have ended. The blade of origin has chosen its guardian. For a breathless moment, silence reigned. Then a strange ripple passed through the crowd, fear mixed with awe. Some aliens dropped their weapons and bowed instinctively. Others stepped back as if the light of the sword burned their very thoughts. Kira froze, staring at Jack. For the first time, her sharp blue eyes looked uncertain. You actually did it, she whispered. But as Jack turned to face her, he noticed something change in her gaze. The uncertainty hardened into something colder. Let me see it, she said softly, stepping closer. Jack hesitated, but held the sword slightly forward. You mean this? It happened in a flash. Kira's wrist twisted and a blade shot out from a concealed mechanism. She lunged, stabbing him in the side. Pain exploded in Jack's ribs, the breath knocked out. Of him, Kira. What? Why? He gasped out, her face twisted, half regret, half anger. You weren't supposed to lift it. I was. It was always meant for me. She grabbed the sword's hilt, but the moment her hand touched it, the blade's glow flared crimson. A wave of energy blasted outward, throwing her backward across the platform. She hit the ground hard, sliding to a stop, dazed and stunned. The sword's voice filled the air again, but this time it was angry. Betrayer detected. Trust shattered. Defense protocol initiated. Rings of blazing light rose from the ground around Jack, forming a shimmering dome that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ground beneath them began to crack wider, glowing with an eerie, unnatural blue light. The valley trembled as if something deep beneath its surface was waking. What's happening? One alien screamed from the crowd. An elder, his crystal body quivering, whispered in terror. The sword is not just a weapon, it's a key. The trials were never about wielding it, they were about protecting the seal. Jack staggered, clutching his bleeding side, his mind spinning. The voice of the sword returned, softer now, almost mournful. The vault is opening. The hunger stirs. You must stand, Guardian, or all will fall. The valley's floor split open with a thunderous crack. From deep below, a massive platform of ancient metal rose, inscribed with the same symbols that burned around Jack's body. It unfolded like a mechanical flower, forming a great circular gate. Within its center, a swirling rift opened a tear. In reality, black and infinite, filled with whispers of hunger and despair. Something was trying to come through. Jack tightened his grip on the sword, its warmth steadying his shaking hands. Around him, aliens who once mocked him now stared as though witnessing a myth unfold. Even Kira, held down by guards, looked at him with a mix of regret and awe. "You can't let it open," she shouted over the chaos. "Whatever's behind that rift, it's death for all of us." Jack looked at her, then at the growing tear. In the world. He didn't know what waited beyond that gate, but he didn't need to. He could feel it, a cold, hungry presence pressing against reality, eager to devour everything. The sword pulsed once, bright as a newborn star. "Seal the gate, Guardian, or none will survive." Jack took a shaky step forward, his body screaming. In pain, but his resolve unshaken. "All right," he muttered. "Let's do this." The sky above the Valley of Trials had turned into a storm of fire and light. The rift at the heart of the ancient gate pulsed like a wounded star, tearing at the fabric of reality. The sound was not just a roar, but 1,000 whispers each, voice clawing at the mind with promises of power, hunger, and annihilation. Jack Reimer stood before it, his battered body swaying as though every breath might be his last. The sword of origin blazed in his hands, no longer just a weapon but a shard of pure, living energy. Its silver blade shimmered with threads of light that seemed to reach for the rift itself, as if recognizing its ancient purpose. The alien crowd, once loud with jeers or awe, now cowered in silence. The towering warriors of the V-Rex Empire stepped back, fear breaking through their pride. The crystal-skinned Zathians dropped their ceremonial staffs and shields. Even the insectoid generals, known for their cold confidence, hissed uneasily. No one dared to move closer to the gate. The power emanating from it wasn't something anyone could fight. It wasn't just heat or light, it was despair, pure and raw, a promise of unmaking. Jack stumbled, his free hand clutching the wound Kira had given him. Blood seeped through his torn suit, darkening the ground beneath him, but he didn't stop. The sword whispered to him again, its voice steady and calm amid the chaos. "You are the Guardian. You must close the breach, or the hunger will consume all." The rift widened. A massive clawed hand of pure shadow began to emerge from the void, each finger stretching like black smoke tipped with obsidian talons. The sight froze the breath of every being in the valley. It wasn't a creature in the normal sense. It was a presence that felt older than galaxies, as if the void itself had taken form just to reach into their reality. Jack's grip on the sword tightened. "No," he whispered, his voice hoarse but unbroken. "You're not coming through. Not today." From the corner of his eye, he saw Kira struggle against the guards holding her. She was no longer defiant but desperate. "Jack," she shouted. "The sword isn't just a key. It's the only thing that can lock it away. But it will take everything from you. Do you understand? It will burn you out." Jack turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. "Guess I don't have much left to lose." He raised the sword, and the entire valley seemed to inhale. Symbols of light spiraled around him faster, brighter, lifting him from the ground. His body floated as if gravity itself had given up on holding him down. The sword of origin transformed. In his hands, extending and splitting into radiant filaments of energy that looked like threads of stars woven together. The gate's edges shook as though in fear. The shadow hand reached further, its claws stretching toward Jack. The sheer cold of it sliced through the heat of the valley, sending frost racing over the cracked stone. Jack screamed not in fear, but in defiance, and drove the sword's glowing edge directly into the heart of the gate. The impact was like a sun exploding. A shockwave of pure light radiated outward, knocking every alien in the valley to their knees. The shadow hand shrieked in a soundless scream, curling and burning away as the rift began to collapse. The ground shook violently, the ancient metal platform crumpling like paper as the gate folded in on itself. Jack felt the sword pulling, demanding every ounce of strength, every memory, every breath he had. He gritted his teeth and held on. Do not yield. You are the last flame. Hold. The void fought back, tendrils of darkness lashing out like whips, cutting across his arms and face. Each strike felt like ice fire, ripping through flesh and bone. But Jack didn't let go. With a roar that carried across the entire valley, he forced the sword deeper, the glow intensifying until the world went white. When the light faded, silence fell. The rift was gone. The gate, once towering and terrible, was nothing but molten fragments sinking into the ground. Jack stood in the center, the sword of origin dim but still alive in his hand. His knees buckled, and he nearly collapsed, but the blade's warmth steadied him, holding him upright. Smoke curled from the scorched ground beneath his feet. Around him, the alien leaders began to rise. Their expressions had changed. There was no more contempt or skepticism, only respect, and a quiet awe that bordered on reverence. The V-Rex general, the same one who had tried to stop him, bowed his head. He sealed it. The human sealed the hunger. Even Kira, her betrayal, still fresh on her face, lowered her eyes. I was wrong, she said quietly. It was never meant for me. The sword chose right. Jack turned slowly, his body shaking with exhaustion. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at the gathered beings. He wasn't just the lost pilot who had stumbled into the valley anymore. He was something else now, something forged by fire, ice, and shadow. The sword of origin pulsed once more, and its voice came only to him. You are the guardian. My duty is now yours. The trials are over, but the watch begins. Others will come for me, for you. The hunger was only a shadow of what lies beyond. Jack's hand tightened on the hilt. He didn't fully understand what the sword meant, but he understood enough. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something bigger, something far beyond this valley or even this world. He raised the sword high, its dim glow flickering back to life. The crowd of aliens, thousands of them, bowed their heads as one. For the first time in the history of the Valley of Trials, someone had claimed the blade. Jack exhaled a long, ragged breath. I guess I'm stuck with you now, he murmured to the sword. And I with you. Guardian, it replied, its voice fading into his mind like the last echo of a star. The twin sons of Korath broke through the clouds, their light spilling across the Jima valley as if in acknowledgement of the new legend forged that day. And so, the galaxy would remember the moment when a lone, ordinary human did what no other being could.